I just put this out. I don't know if you're all using the UC Europe website. It's a completely free access website. There's no passwords. You just need the link. All the materials you're studying today and much, much more are on that website. So you see all the tabs there, different tabs. You go to the Hundok Materials tab on the UC Europe website and you get a whole list of all sorts of different materials to do with the Divine Principle. And the bottom one is Professor Oh's lectures. You click on Professor Oh's lectures, you've got all the lectures he delivered to us in Schmitten. And you've got not only the PowerPoint slides, you've got all the sound files. I've been studying it like that. In fact, driving here this morning, driving the car with my earphones in, and I was listening to one of the lectures with the earphones in the car, driving, just listening to it. Didn't bash into anything, I got here safely. And it was uplifting and very helpful to prepare. So please, 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 my feeling is very, very much, these lectures are so helpful. Because in a short set of lectures, it provides a complete framework. And it's centering on the great textbooks and teaching materials. That's what it's centering. And as you know, Father's explanation is very clear. When I go to the spiritual world, where will I dwell? I'll dwell in the textbooks and the teaching materials. Of course, Father will dwell with Mother, no question about that. And of course, Father will dwell, let's hope, also in us, I mean, what we manifest. But actually, most profoundly, Father's, in a sense, embodied the Word. So he left the 8 great textbooks and teaching materials as his absolute legacy through which he lives. So this whole teaching is centering on that. And it's like a complete overview. So, you know, when I've been teaching the principles, it's often occurred to me, when you go into the principle, you get into particular parts, and you go into depth in a particular part, but actually to understand that part, you need to see it in overview. So it's like, you know, when you don't know London, and you just use the underground system, you pop up somewhere, and you go in the underground and you pop up somewhere, and you have no idea how it all connects together. Do you know what I mean? London, you don't know London, you just come out of the underground system. So this is really, really precious material. It's the best short summary of the understanding of what Father's been teaching most recently that I've ever experienced. And it's all there. All of us can directly access and study it through this website. So I would strongly suggest that you know, if you get a chance to use this every single day, you can legitimately use it as your Hundok, for example. It's entirely legitimate. In Schmitten, we didn't have Hundok. We just started at 5 in the morning with these lectures. It's really, really helpful to grasp this. So I strongly recommend that. As I'm sure you heard from David, since 1996, Professor Oh had direct one-on-one time with Father. Many, 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 many times. And also he was there with Father on almost every single occasion. We had direct one-on-one question-answer interaction with Father. So it's incredibly, incredibly precious on that level. So we're only giving you a very short part of it. There are many, many more lectures than we can cover in 4 hours this morning. But you can be as if you're in the workshop. You can watch the slides. You can listen to the sound. Soon we'll put the videos up as well. But actually the sound on the slides is already very, very good. So this is the website. It's uc-europe.europeanoffice.net. uc-europe.europeanoffice.net. It's all there. Okay. I just wanted to show you something else. Look at these, everybody. This is amazing. This is that original document, right? Father's original Divine Principle document, handwritten by... Oh, it's gone to the beginning of the class. Sorry. Okay. Oh, it's gone to the beginning again. Okay, now you can see it well enough here. Okay, these are the front pages, the front covers of the original document that Father wrote between the end of 1950 and the end of 1951 in Busan with the pencil sharp by Yong Taek Oh. These are the front pages of the different books that made up that 600-odd page document that Father wrote, and he actually went through a little bit more detail about the various different pages. So this is part of the lectures. I'm not going to do this morning, but if you get into the material on the website, which is free access, you can look at this material, you can even read, you can read the Korean on there, faintly, you can read it. And all of this original writing of Father, it's almost complete. There's just one small section that's incomplete, and that's made up for by Wong Pil Kim's copy. Wong Pil Kim made a copy, Ho Wan Yu made a copy, Mrs. Kang made a copy, and there was one other copy, I can't remember who did that. But 4 copies were made, so even what's missing from this one, which is only a small amount, is replaced by that. So that's all there. So there's an incredible, treasure trove, absolute golden treasure trove of material there. This is in Chuncheongun. Okay, so I'm going to start now, and I don't know how far I'm going to get. I've got, David was covering the first 5 lectures. I only managed to talk about 2 of them. I'm covering the last 4 lectures, and I've prepared 3 of them, but I don't think I'll get through 3 of them. And even then, I've cut out some slides to try and get through. So this section, these last 4 lectures, was entitled The Foundation Day Providence. It's all about the Foundation Day Providence. So it's rooted in the previous material, but it's all about the Foundation Day Providence. So the first lecture was about the era of the God of night and the God of day. The God of night and day, unified. So I think you all have an inkling what it's about. I wrote this down. This is not from his lecture slides. This is just what I wrote from what he said. And it really helped me to get it together. So, of course, Father's been talking about this basically since 2011. Father started talking about the God of night and the God of day. Who's the God of night? The God of night is the internal God. The God who was there before the creation, but could not be seen, was not tangible. Intangible God. Intangible original God. And I think you're all aware of Father's explanation. Father has, of course, very clear explanation. God is the being of heart, so therefore God has to have an object, right? This is the most fundamental understanding Father conveyed. Because God is a God of heart, a God who wants to love, then absolutely God has to have an object, right? We understand that. So we understand that's why God created. But another way of understanding why God's created is because God has so much beauty within his own being, but he cannot taste it, he cannot touch it, he cannot relate to it because it's within himself. David was talking about that. You blink your eyes, you don't know. Your heart beats, you don't know, because it's part of you. So God cannot taste himself, his own beauty, his own love, all the beauty that's within God. So God created in order to substantiate outside of himself. And then through relating to the substantiation of himself outside of himself, God would be able to taste everything, and that would be his partner. So as just been studying this morning, what's the core of that? What's the place where that's first substantiated? That's the place of absolute sex. That's the place where Adam and Eve meet in love, where they meet God, and in the first love on the wedding night. So that's also to do with this God of night and God of day. The God of night, the invisible God. The God of day, going back to the text up there, the God of day is the external God, the body of God. And it was to have been the perfected Adam and Eve. God would have related to all the rest of his creation through that perfected Adam and Eve. Right? We know that. We know that. So, also, of course, because the completion in the sense of the completion of the God of night is through the God of day. Do you understand? Do you understand that? Yeah. The God of night, in a sense, is half of a partnership, isn't he? Yeah. The other half of the partnership is the God of the day. So the God of the night and the God of the day have to become the God of night and day. And then that is the completion. That's the completion. So as the God of day grows, what does that mean? It means Adam and Eve. Through the 3 stages, so the God of night also grows. So God is completed through Adam and Eve's completion, to become the God of night and day. So what's the most difficult, challenging point in that process towards the moment of Foundation Day? Because Foundation Day should originally have been the day that Adam and Eve, with God's blessing, met in love, in absolute sex. And God came down and dwelt with them in that place. That would have been the original Foundation Day. The most difficult challenge on the way to that is for Adam to reach the level, this is the text at the bottom, for Adam to reach the level where God can enter him and wear him as God's body or substantial form. Without reaching that oneness, Adam and Eve cannot progress to the next level. Did you catch that? So, first of all, Adam, in a sense, had to fulfill the first blessing, right? He had to become completely one with God himself. And then, of course, what does Adam then become? He's the body of God. So what does it mean? It means the invisible, original seed that is within God, invisibly. Do you understand? Because God's invisible being contains everything, which later on becomes substantiated. So the essence of God is the seed of God's true love. Right? God's sperm. God's sperm. So God's invisible sperm becomes Adam's substantial sperm. And through Adam's substantial body, God sows his sperm through his substantial counterpart, Adam's sperm, into Eve. Right? And that is absolute sex. And that is the Foundation Day. That's it. So, purpose of creation and true parents. So, what is then the purpose of creation, Adam and Eve? It's the completion of Adam and Eve's portion of responsibility. And when Professor O talked about, Professor O's not talking any of his own words. He's just studied and studied and studied and studied, had direct access to Father, and tried to put it together so that we can actually catch what Father's been talking about all this time, which we didn't have that access to, or maybe didn't even have that time to study. So he said, what did God say directly to Adam and Eve? God directly said to Adam and Eve the 3 great blessings. And then later, God directly said to Adam and Eve the commandment. The 3 great lessons of the commandment. But originally, what he explained is the commandment is not necessary. The commandment should not be necessary. Not necessary. Only the 3 great lessons. And we'll get into this later to explain more why. I'll just give you a little taste of it now, and it'll come back to it later if I get that far. Essentially, God gave the commandment to the archangel and to Adam and Eve, because God could see that everything could go wrong through the archangel. So until that moment, there was the 3 blessings. Once God gave the word to the archangel, and then to Adam and Eve, not to eat, that's the start of another point in a sense. It's already, there's the point of danger. So Father even explained, in a sense, we have to get back to the time before the commandment was ever given. Because once the commandment was given, what does it mean? It means something's already potential to go wrong. Do you understand? So God gave that direction to the archangel, not don't. And to Adam and Eve at that time. So completion of Adam and Eve means completion of their portion of responsibility. Originally the 3 great blessings, and once the danger came, also to keep the commandment. Through completion of the 4 realms of heart and attaining God's divine entity, going back to the text, they have to do it through that, through attaining the divine entity. This is the terminology he's translating from Father's words, the divine entity, that is God. And through becoming the substantial being of absolute sex, resembling the divine entity of absolute sex. Becoming God's substantial holy temple and achieving oneness between God and human beings. So that's that moment. Do you understand? That moment when Adam and Eve, under God's blessing, meet in absolute sex, in the sexual act, such that absolutely their meeting, horizontal meeting, is the effect of the vertical cause. The love of God. The love of God. So this meeting of Adam and Eve in love is, as it were, the substantial expression of what's going on inside the God of night, where masculinity and femininity are perfectly united. And God even, you heard this in the original divine principle content, God has sexual organs within the invisible God even. And God has sperm and egg. But then they're substantially expressed in Adam and Eve, right? And then when they meet, when Adam and Eve meet in love, through the sexual organs in absolute sex, when seed and ovum meet, that's the moment, in first love, on the first night, that's the foundation. So then they become the substantial dwelling place of God. They become the God of day. Adam and Eve become the God of day. After that meeting, after that first love experience, they become the God of day to God's God of night, to the internal, invisible gods. The God of night, they become the counterpart, the body of God, the visible, substantial manifestation of God. So God is embodied in Adam and Eve. I wrote it slightly different in English because my understanding is that's what it means. So God wants to be embodied, substantiated in Adam and Eve, the invisible God of the night. God is, and you've heard this already from David, the vertical owner of the sexual organ, and the horizontal owner of the sexual organ is your spouse. Doesn't belong to you. It belongs to God first. First owner is God, vertical owner. Second owner is your spouse. So God would marry. How would he marry? He would marry through being embodied in Adam. So Adam would marry Eve, but what does it really mean? It means through Adam, God is marrying Eve. Did you hear this explanation? The last thing God made is the most wonderful and most precious. So what's the last thing God made? Eve. It's Eve. So who is Adam? Adam is the body that God is going to enter. But who's God's object partner? It's actually Eve. It's actually Eve. So God is going to marry Eve. So what's Foundation Day about? Foundation Day is the day that God marries the true mother. Do you understand? That's that day. That's that day. It's what should originally have happened in Adam and Eve had they fulfilled. So the first love of Adam and Eve is also God's first love. In fact, when he explained more about this, he explained that God would taste it first, as it were. And he went quite a bit into explaining what Father's been talking about recently. Father's talking about the temperature of lovemaking. Have you heard that Father talks about this? The temperature of lovemaking. And Father goes into some explanation about different levels of temperature. But the Professor O referred that to here. He said, ultimately God wants to experience lovemaking at a temperature of 120 degrees. So it sounds like, impossible. How, we'd be burnt. Interesting. But somehow, there's this intensity of interaction. And Father talks about this, and David referred to it. Professor O wasn't saying that we only have sexual relationships 4 times a year. Don't misunderstand. He's saying that we should, in order to sustain our relationship, have this thunder and lightning, 120 degrees interaction, that would sustain us and bind us together in love. So that's referring to that. So the first night of their love, Adam and Eve's love, would have belonged to God, because God is the vertical owner. And what does that also mean? Of course, the children born would be born of the seed and the egg of Adam and Eve meeting, but behind that is the invisible seed and egg of God. Do you understand? So they're born not just of the substantial seed and egg of Adam and Eve, because that substantial seed and egg of Adam and Eve is but the day of the God of the day to the God of the night. Do you understand? So they're born of the seed and egg of God of night and the seed and egg of God of the day. So they become the children of God's direct lineage. And you remember also David's lectures, he's explained blood lineage, very, very important. What does it mean? It means you have the divine mind. It means God is dwelling in your mind. It means God can speak his language directly to you. Directly to you. And then you have to put it in practice in your life, and then on the basis of the practice in your life, then you can teach it to your children. That's what Adam should originally have done. God would have spoken directly to Adam, directly to Eve, and then would have practiced in their life, and then they would have been able to explain it to their children. So, we of course, need to be reborn we can't be physically reborn. Remember, Father talks about this so profoundly. We have to be reborn through the realm of the heart on Foundation Day. In a sense, what is very clear through these presentations is, before Foundation Day, this place has not been made. So everybody born before Foundation Day has not been born truly. Because Foundation Day is the first love meeting between Adam and Eve where God comes down. Do you understand? That's the beginning of John of God. That's the beginning of God's world. That's the origin point. So everybody has to be reborn through receiving the blessing and the benediction prayer of true parents on Foundation Day. That's the explanation. Even, everybody, true children, everybody. Because we haven't yet had the starting point. So of course we need to prepare for that Foundation Day. How do we prepare for that Foundation Day? We're trying to remove from ourselves every single trace of the fall. Every single, thing, residue, every single element of the fall. We're trying to remove it from ourselves in order to meet that day. But of course we're not meeting that day because of something we've done or our merit. We're meeting that day because of grace from true parents. So, because Adam and Eve fell, what did it mean? It meant that God could not marry. Do you understand? It meant that their first love, God was not there, was he? God had no part of their first love. God did not come down. It was not his substantial expression. It had nothing to do with him. Actually, what we understand is Satan, Lucifer, substantiated. Adam became his body. And Lucifer sowed his seed into Eve through Adam, right? That's what happened through the fall. So it didn't belong to God at all. So what does it mean? We've been marrying, we've been having children all down human history, but God never married. God never had his first love. God has remained the lonely bachelor all down human history, waiting for the day to be liberated. Liberated. How can God be liberated? Only by the person who understands what God originally intended to do. Do you understand? Only because Father understood what Adam and Eve should originally have done, does Father know what wasn't done. And that starting point for God's world never took place. So Father's been working to finally establish that foundation there and be able to, give God, take God out of his bachelorhood into his marriage and into his first love. So of course there's been many stages in that. Then I've skipped some slides here. He went on to explain about how Father understands his own status as the one born as the Lord of the Second Advent, born as the Messiah. So he went through an explanation explaining that basically when people first started teaching the divine principle, they didn't teach the whole divine principle at all. David already explained this to you. The content that's in that original divine principle text that Father wrote was never passed. Of course, a lot of it was passed, but many key points were not passed. In one sense, some of the most essential points were not passed because people wouldn't have been able to receive them. So this emphasis on absolute sex, which is the core truth of all the truth, was never passed. It wasn't expressed like that. So, also in the same way, he explained that Father's own identity and origin was not expressed clearly. And by word of mouth and by that type of way, people understood that maybe Father wasn't born free of original sin and somehow grew up, and then somehow, when he met Jesus, he got some anointing or received something, and so on and so on and so on. But he expressed that Father couldn't talk freely, and Father said this himself. He says it in the autobiography. If I'd said everything, they would have killed me. It would have been the end of my life. I couldn't have lived and said it. So I didn't say it. So you see all the dates, there's many dates in the text, and they're always referring to particular occasions when Father spoke. So Those dates are from 2009 to 2011, right? So fathers expressed in that more recent period, I was born without any trace of the fall. I was born unrelated to the fallen blood lineage. I was born without original sin. I was born as the direct Son of God. I received God's heavenly seal from my birth. So it's very, very clear. Father is not, assuming that position after his birth or later. But Father was from birth, as Adam, as Jesus, completely, with the divine mind, completely belonging to God's blood lineage. So true Father will continue, and this I wrote just from the notes, the little bit underneath there, the bottom. True Father will continue to live through the Word, and of course through true Mother, and through the Abel and the Cain children. Abel children meaning his own, the true children, and Cain children meaning us, after he goes to the spiritual world. That's of course provided we live according to the Word. Also very clear, the status of true parents is not transferred. There is only one true parents. There's only one origin. The origin is the origin, will always be the origin, and there's no other origin but one origin. So in that sense, true parents don't have successors, do you understand? There's no second true parents or third true parents. There's only one origin. Of course, we all want to be successors. We all want to be, as Father said long ago, small sum unknowns, or as we are challenged in this content, actually it's saying that we should all become true parents of heaven, earth, and human company. We should all assume that status. But nobody else will be the origin. So, very, very crucial point, of course, is the completion of Mother. Because, if Mother's not completed, then, of course, Foundation Day can never come. So, you understand this point that, Father has to have a focus on completing Mother. So he explained about this. So he explained, if you have an absolute subject partner, then that absolute subject partner, an object partner will come to meet it. So the original absolute subject partner is, of course, God. And God's immediate object partner, in whom he's going to be embodied, is, of course, Adam. So God created Adam. And then he explained Adam creates Eve. And you know, of course, the biblical story, the rib and so on. So what does it mean? It means Adam is to become the substantiation of God as the masculine being. Do you understand? As the masculine creator. As the husband of Eve. As the father God in that sense. So God creates Adam, and then Adam is to create Eve. And then this is through a process, and David didn't have a chance to explain it. Please, please, please study these lectures. Professor Oh talks about the core thoughts of Father's whole teaching. And one of the critical core thoughts is about absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience. So, please understand, David and I have done minimal preparation to present these things this morning. It's miserable, our preparation, in a sense. We sat in the lectures, we heard them in Schmidt, and we came home and were overwhelmed by so many things to do. We've tried to listen again to the soundtrack. We tried to go through the slides and try and catch it, but no way are we really qualified to deliver to you now. But that's the reality. So we've got to go away and study to be able to pass this content properly. So I didn't study the earlier lectures, I only studied the bit I had to teach this morning in more depth. I did look through one time, but my recollection of the meaning of absolute faith, absolute love, absolute obedience, I was very impressed. What I understood from it was, and David already referred to this, God perfected the principle, which is the blueprint of the whole creation. And once he perfected the principle, he himself maintained absolute faith, love, and obedience, centering on the principle. The principle became his subject. In other words, God does not break the principle. Do you understand? God himself keeps the principle. God himself has had faith in the principle. What does it mean? It's like a vertical. What? By golly, has God need faith in the principle? Because the reality is the principle's never been realized. Do you understand? The purpose of creation never happened. So when you put all your heart and soul investing in something and it never happens, what's likely to happen? You start to think this isn't true. I've wasted my life. I've devoted myself to all this stuff that I believed in, and it's all gone. So what did Jesus' disciples feel when Jesus hung on the cross? When he started to think about, I must go and die, what was their understanding? What have we been doing? We understood we would sit on his right hand and his left hand when he sat on the throne. And now nothing. So God has had to have absolute faith in the principle, do you understand? God has had to absolutely know what he originally intended, and that he will never rest and never cease until it becomes reality. So absolute faith is that absolute confidence in the principle. What's absolute love is that you will love. Is you will, do you understand? If absolute faith is, you know, the origin, division, union, action. Absolute faith, is what I understand it, it's like the origin. You know, you have absolute faith in the principle. Then absolute love, that's the give and take bit, the division bit. Do you know what it means? You devote your life, you give and take, you invest in people, you invest and you forget, you invest and you forget, and you invest and you forget, and you invest and you forget. That's love. Absolute love. And what's absolute obedience is the bottom of the origin, division, union, action. It's the union. It means you substantiate the result that the principle said will come out through your love and total investment until it becomes living reality. Do you understand? So in a sense, Father's devoted himself to that to get to Foundation Day, to make the origin, to make the starting point, to fulfill the responsibility, human responsibility. So that's absolute faith. So God followed absolute faith, love and obedience. Adam has to follow absolute love, faith and obedience. Absolute faith, love and obedience. And then Eve also has to have absolute faith, love and obedience in Adam. Or in this case, mother in father. Do you understand? Father had to have absolute faith, absolute love for God, absolute obedience to God, wanted to substantiate what God intended originally. And then mother has to have the same attitude towards God. So in order for a mother to be completed, she has to restore the three mistakes. What are the three mistakes? He referred to Eve's original mistake, Jesus' mother Mary's mistake, and the father's first wife, first true mother's mistake. Need to be restored. Father talked about that in 1997. And mother should achieve, first of all, absolute oneness with Father. Actually, Father declared that took place in 2003, at that time. At the time of their holy wedding in 2003. And she should then move on to become God's substantial being. So absolute oneness with Father, and then actually herself become God's substantial being. And we will look at that in more detail in a minute. And then on the foundation of that, so in her own right, if you like, not through her relationship with Father, but in her own right, she should become the absolute substance of God as his feminine manifestation. And then that enables the proclamation of the ultimate unity of God, which Father did make in June of 2010. So also what Professor O clearly explained to us is all the things that we're studying now about what needs to be done, what needs to be completed. Father has completed. So probably you all watched now this last prayer of Father. When he went to the hospital for the second time, he said a prayer there holding Mother's hands. And he expressed everything's completed. Everything's completed. And of course, Father's been saying that now, you know, for a couple of years. Father's been talking about everything being completed. So this is the process of true mother's completion. So, I don't know, can you all see that? Anyhow, I can't go through everything in detail. I'm already, you know, anyhow, time is flying. So, but you can understand through this, can't you? Father's life course. Father's life course as the Messiah, then becoming the true parent, and then ultimately becoming the King of Kings. So in that process, Mother's part of that is that in that period, Father's standing as the Messiah, so that's from 1960 towards 1977, and then actually basically until 1991, because I don't have a pointer here, I don't think it's got a pointer, but can you see that under the date, the third one up, which crosses the yellow line, is 1991. So it means basically for 30 years that role is still being played out in a sense. And what's mother's position then? She's actually in the daughter's position and the younger sister's position. So if you wanted to put it as sort of visual image, it means she's following behind father, right? During that period. And then it mentions also, you know, that, for example, she didn't have any financial ability whatsoever. And, you know, these various different stages, also comments that are there. So fundamentally, I won't go through it all now, but, you know, through mother's speaking tours, do you notice it says comment there, start of the speaking tour, 1991, July 1st. July the 1st, 1990, what's that? This is Day of God's Eternal Blessing. This is Chil Il Jol, right? This was the declaration of Chil Il Jol, Day of God's Eternal Blessing, 1991, 1st of July. What's so significant about that day? Because Father said on that day, Mother reached a new level. Of course, that's also the day we became what? Father declared tribal messiahship. Well, Father talked about it before, and the era of tribal messiahship began on the foundation of what? On the foundation of Mother entering into a new stage so that Father and Mother together could stand as the true parents. So please understanding this, Father's progress is dependent on Mother's progress. Do you know, we explained before that the God of night's growth is dependent on the God of day's growth. Yeah. So it says what Father can accomplish is determined by what Mother can accomplish. So Mother entered a new era, and then she moved from being behind to be beside Father. And then she moved to being in an equal position to Father. Then she moved to have equal authority to Father. Then she moved to have absolute oneness with Father, and that was marked in 2003 at the time of Father and Mother's blessing in 2003. And then she stood as the Queen. So through daughter, younger sister, wife, mother, grandmother, queen by 2003. And then crossed the line again. Crossed the line again, connected to Mother in her own right becoming substantial God. So how's that expressed by? Well, you know, when Mother became equal to Father, it means Mother doesn't do Kyongbei to Father anymore. When Father and Mother entered the situation of joint oneness with God, and the King of Kings situation means they don't Kyongbei to God. Do you understand? Why do they not Kyongbei to God? Because God is dwelling in them. They have their oneness. So, you know, they're oneness already, so there's no need. They're not separated, and therefore Kyongbei, they're actually one already, so they don't need to Kyongbei in that sense. And the ultimate position, and this is a foundation day, 2013, 1:13, Mother becomes what? She becomes God's daughter. What is this? This is first night. First love. First love. God present in Father. Absolute sexual relationship with true Mother. This is the meaning of it. This is that expression of complete oneness. So that's Father then taking Mother to ultimately what God originally intended, you know, at the beginning of creation, when God envisaged his object partner Eve as the ultimate creation. So, as a result of true Mother's completion, Mother stands in the completed position. And Father talked about that in Hawaii in 2008 on the 14th of May. Also, what does this mean? It means the completion of the Trinity. It means God is the Holy Father, true Father is the Holy Son, and true Mother is the Holy Daughter. She's not the Holy Daughter following behind the Holy Son, do you understand? She's the Holy Daughter as the feminine substantiation of God in her own right, or as he puts it later, as an independent character. So you remember inauguration of the Able Women UN and the text of the speech, and Father's explaining women completely, absolutely equal to men. They're not existing, you know, of course they are existing for men and men are existing for women, but absolutely independent being in their own right, disconnected with this course of mothers. So also, of course, the result of Mother's completion is that the coronation ceremony for the realm of the liberation of God could take place. And this was that coronation ceremonies that took place. Do you remember in 2009, Father did it on the 15th day of the first month, and then he did it again on the 31st, which was, if I remember correctly, that was God's Day that year. And then he went and did it again in America on the same day. Do you remember that? When he did the blessing there. and he went in the same day because of the time change difference. He did it in Korea and then he did it in New York as well. That was that King of Kings coronation ceremony. And on the foundation of Mother's completion, Father moves from Messiah to true parent to King of Kings. So Father can't move through those, the chart without Mother's completion. And I remember being there on, which one was it? Must have been 2011. Day of Victory of Love in Cheonjeonggung, and Father standing there and singing about Mother. You don't know who Mother is. You don't understand who Mother is. Because fundamentally, without Mother, having absolute faith, absolute love, and absolute obedience, Father can't do it. He can't do it. He can't complete anything without Mother's completion. So this bit here, result of the cosmic assembly. So Father's been holding all these speech events, right? Called the Cosmic Assembly for the proclamation of the substantial word and the settlement of the true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind. Father's been having all these series of, proclamations. And in connection with that, Professor O quoted this quotation from the peace messages. It's God talking about how God would have felt had someone completely accomplished the responsibility. If someone had come forward, I'm certain that God would have appeared in his dreams, carried the sun and the moon to him, and shouted with lightning of joy and thunder of ecstasy from the heavens. So that's God's, feeling towards the one who can understand and accomplish all these things, fulfill the portion of human responsibility that was never fulfilled. So what's the meaning of those cosmic assemblies? The meaning of those cosmic assemblies they are the event to chase away Satan from the cosmos and to absolutely declare the true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind as the origin, as the center around which the new world, because the world up until then has been a false world, not connected to God, didn't have the right starting point. The world that comes from the true starting point, where Adam and Eve meet each other and God meets them, the foundation day, that is being established. So the cosmic assemblies were already, Father, completing the process in so much detail, with so much thoroughness, with so much heart towards the foundation day. Also, the cosmic assemblies were to clear up the past and start a new history. So Father expressed that in his New Year benediction in 2011. Clear up all the history since the fall. A new history of creation is starting. The era when the God of night and day directly manages the providence. And again, you remember David was referring to what's the difference between Father and us. Father is managed by the God of night, and we are managed by that since the God of the day. Of course, the God of night and day is the union of the internal, invisible God and the body of God, the visible manifestation of God, the substantiation of God, which stands at the center of the creation, which is ultimately the true parent. So, thinking about it then in terms of origin, division, union, action, and later also the four-position foundation. So, there's the origin God, but the origin God, the invisible God, in a sense the God of night, comes down, and where does God, find his settlement place? Where does God find his homeland? Where's the preparation, which is the growth of Adam and Eve, coming to its fulfillment? Where's the original foundation dates where Adam and Eve meet in absolute sex? On their wedding night, in their first love. And God comes down as the vertical owner of the sexual organs. And God tastes that love at 120 degrees. As the first, God in a sense has the first taste. And then through the division then, through Adam and Eve, the divided masculine and feminine substantiations of God meeting each other, the God of night and the God of day meet each other, and then becomes the united being. So that place they meet each other in the middle, that's transferred to the fourth position. That becomes the union. The invisible origin and the visible origin become one through absolute sex. That's at the meeting place in the middle. And then that's transferred to the united being, the fourth position. True Father substantiates the Word and creates true Mother. And this brings true mother to the level of the wife of God. This is foundation. And then you transfer that into four position foundations. So with that one, right, origin, division, union, there's no children, right? There's no multiplied body. There's no procreation. But with the four position foundation, that meeting between Adam and Eve and God, caused by God, becomes a multiplied body. Children are conceived and born. And that's the four position foundation. And that's the completion also, because of course, to be completed, you need those three stages. You need it substantiated in actually children being... Whose children are they? They're the children of God's blood lineage. It means they have the divine mind. They have the divine mind. Or originally, as Father expressed, and a professor talked about this so much, and I never heard this ever before. He talked so much about the divine mind means you only have awareness of God and others. You don't have awareness of self. What does this mean? It means you're taken back into the Garden of Eden. What's the original Garden of Eden? The original Garden of Eden is the world before the commandment. Do you understand? Because the commandment already indicates that something is wrong. Something needs to be taken care of that shouldn't be there. So, this is explaining then what's the cosmic assembly about. The cosmic assembly is about the completion of origin, division, union, action. And this is a chart to explain origin in different aspects, division in different aspects, union in different aspects. So the origin is the God of mind, the division is the God of body. It means, God of body means Adam and Eve becoming one in the absolute sexual relationship. And then the union that results from that origin, division, union action is the God of mind and body. Or to put it another way, the God of night, and then Adam and Eve meeting in absolute sex, that's the God of day, and then you've got the union, which is the God of night. Number 4, the parents of heaven, and actually he corrected that one, he said that should have been the parents of heaven and earth, the division. So Adam and Eve, in that sense, becoming one. And then all united together. So where do they unite together? The parents of heaven comes down to the place where Adam and Eve meet. And then that becomes the true parents of heaven, earth, and kingdom. The divine self of divinity, which is the invisible God, the God of night, meets with or finds his counterpart in the division stage with the substantial self of divinity. This is the substantiation of God's masculine and feminine aspects, absolutely substantiated in Adam and Eve. They then meet each other at their center point. And then that's the division stage. And then that becomes the divine entity. And the divine word, which is, invisible, intangible word, becomes the substantial word in Adam and Eve at that moment on the original foundation day as it should have been. And that becomes God's words, manifested, substantiated in that coming together of God and Adam and Eve. So the purpose of creation seen through origin, division, union, action, it's the completion of the true parents, of course, but then what does it mean also, coming to the 4-position foundation? It means it's the completion of the ideal family. It means God, Adam and Eve, their children, right? That's the families established. God, Adam and Eve, their children. Then that becomes the completion of the kingdom of heaven, or the nation, if you like, or Chunil Guk. Because once the family is established, God, Adam and Eve, children, the nation has begun. The nation has its starting point. What he explained very clearly was any nation that doesn't have that starting point is not a nation under God. So all the nations that existed until this time in human history, they are not nations from God's point of view, because the starting point must be this origin, division, union, action, 4-position foundation, which is the starting point of Chunil Guk. So Foundation Day, Chunil Guk begins with, that meeting place being made, where God comes down and the Trinity is established, where God, Adam and Eve become completely one. That's the starting point. Then once Foundation Day is established, it means eternal good can begin. What does it mean also? Of course, it means we all have to be reborn through that starting place. We all need to be reborn through the grace of the true parents of that moment. So this is the core of completion of the purpose of creation. It's the completion of the true parents. That's what needs to be completed. So this gets on more specifically then to Trinity. So the Trinity is completed through origin, division, and interaction. The origin is the one mind, the vertical oneness with God, the oneness of Adam with God, and the oneness of Eve with God. I think that also relates, of course, in a sense to, their individual perfection, the first blessing, that sort of meaning. And then Adam and Eve become one body. The divided masculine and feminine become one in horizontal oneness. Means absolute sex. When God comes down, finds his dwelling, finds his home, has his wife and his first love relationship forever. That's the division. And then they become a union, the united being of God, Adam and Eve. That's the original Trinity. That's the fulfillment of the Trinity through the understanding of origin, division, and union. So, as I said, he has a lecture about the core thoughts. So he explains about the core thoughts of Father's all teachings. We're not covering that this morning. Very, very essential content. So, and this is very, you can understand why Father couldn't say this stuff, right? He wrote this stuff down, but he couldn't have it said to people. When Adam's sperm and Eve's egg become one inside Eve's womb, God comes down vertically, and the Trinity is complete. The Trinity is completed as Holy Father, Holy Son, Holy Daughter. So we know we've got this in Christology in a way, haven't we? Yeah. But we don't understand its absolute sex. We don't really understand how they're meeting each other. But that's how central is absolute sex? So, the revolution is the revolution of absolute sex. If we can't, that's the standard that has to be established. We can understand the preciousness of lineage. And how God, in a sense, God can only come down and be absolutely one with our mind, or the heavenly mind become the divine mind, on the foundation of lineage. Because, it's the seed and the egg meeting with the absolute presence of God. So the Trinity is completed through realizing the core thoughts. So if you go and study the lectures, you can see the lecture he gave about the core thoughts. And that includes that content about absolute obedience, absolute love, absolute faith, absolute love, absolute obedience. So, Father declared the Trinity had been substantially completed. During this, I think that means during this period, on the 5th of August 2000. Oh, no, that's a heavenly calendar year. Heavenly calendar year. So the first heavenly calendar year, which of course is 2010, on the maybe the 8th or the 5th actually, that means 8th of May. How are you managing?
Excuse me?
We're trying to be absolutely obedient.
Okay. I'm trying to.
Question?
Yeah, maybe you can talk to me personally afterwards if you like, because we've got to finish. I want to get as much in as I can. So, rebirth, resurrection, eternal life, blessing. So, Father talks in his Cosmic Assembly speech, he talks about rebirth, resurrection, and eternal life. He talks about that content. So, and this is talking about true parents' holy wedding at the formation stage, the growth stage, and the completion stage. We're going to think about that. And that's, of course, 1960, 2003, and 2013. Human beings after the fall are reborn by the God of night and day. That's what happens on the Foundation Day Holy Wedding. The Foundation Day Holy Wedding is the Holy Wedding is officiated by the God of night and day. So in that we receive the rebirth blessing, the resurrection blessing, and the eternal life blessing. But also over time, those relate as well to 1960, 2003, and 2013. And we move And there's a spelling controversy in Romanized letters here a little bit, but probably you've noticed we're sending everything out now for Father's Songhwa ceremony, and we're using SEO. You notice that?
Yeah.
Whereas before, the ceremony, which we called the Songhwa ceremony, is SEU. Okay. So now with the Songhwa ceremony, of course, Chinese characters are completely different, right? Sound, maybe to our ears, is enormous, incredibly similar, but Chinese characters are different. So we've moved from the Songhwa ceremony, which began in 1984 with Hongjianim's passing. We've moved now to the Songhwa ceremony, which is a ceremony of the Garden of Eden. It's a ceremony of the Garden of Eden. It's a ceremony before any trace of the fall. So that ceremony should be happening at birth, at marriage, and at passing to the spiritual world. They're all Songhwa ceremonies. The original ceremonies in the original Garden of Eden before the fall. And that started, let's see the date there. Oh, no, that's all right. That started 2011, 1014. Father declared them. 1014, what's 1014? Means it's on an anniversary of Father's liberation. Liberation. Also connected to David S.C. Kim's Songhwa. Because Father had the first Songhwa then for David Kim, the former president of the UTS. Okay, so conclusion of this is the first of 3 lectures. It's 11:30. Conclusion. The era of God of night and the God of day. The purpose of God's creation is the completion of the Trinity. So we understand that now through origin, division, union, action. And the center of that is where Adam and Eve and God become one through absolute sex. God's providence of salvation is shobutuksam, means that everything must be completed the third time, the third occasion. So origin, division, union in that sense, it comes from that everything should be completed the third time. Of course, also it means this is the third Adam, this is the Adam, Jesus, Lord of second Adam. So the era of the God of night and day is completed through the completion of the Trinity. And that is the beginning of the era of God's direct enemy. Because it's the origin, it's the starting point. Foundation day is the starting point for God's kingdom. Without that starting point, there cannot be God's kingdom. Because that was the original purpose of creation, right? The original plan of God was Adam and Eve would come together, absolute sex, first love. And that would be the start of heavenly family. Heavenly family is the foundation for the heavenly nation. So there can be no heavenly nation without foundation day. That would have been originally Adam and Eve's foundation day, but now true parents are trying to re-establish, restore, recover, complete the whole process of restoration. And it will be marked by a foundation. So that means it's the era of the harmony and unification of the spiritual world and the physical. And it's the era of the harmony and unification of God and humankind. And in that era, when God makes the determination, nothing is impossible. You know Father's words there on that. So we should greet that day, we should greet the foundation day with limitless gratitude, limitless glory, and limitless praise to the true parents, because we didn't know anything about it. We knew nothing about it. All of theological history knew nothing about God's original purpose. They didn't understand about absolute sex. They didn't understand about the God of the night and the God of the day. They knew nothing of it whatsoever. So they didn't know how to save God. They didn't know how to liberate God. They didn't know how to make the origin. So, let's give limitless gratitude, glory and praise to the true parents. And let's become the true I and then the true we. And Father talked about that in 2001. So I put this little note at the bottom, that's my note. Once the God of night and day are one, things will progress more rapidly. We should have limitless gratitude to true parents. That's what Professor expressed. So that's the end of that presentation. Break, but you can stand up and stretch or whatever, breathe deeply, whatever you need to do. Oh, don't go away, because I'm going to start again literally in 30 seconds. You have to. So, I mean, I don't think we can get through it, but there's actually, of course, there's 3 more lectures, but I prepared 2 more. But there's 3 more. The last one is actually about the free ideal world. The free ideal world. Wow. Free ideal world. So all these treasures there, you just got to click on the website. And you've got treasure. Okay, so let's carry on. So this is, of these 4 lectures, this is the second one. And they're all about Foundation Day, right? Lecture 2 is the completion of restoration of Foundation Day. So what is Foundation Day? Foundation Day marks the absolute completion of restoration. Everything's sorted. Everything's done. And on that foundation, the origin, the origin can come about. So you have to think, I have to think, we have to think how thorough Father is. How Father's leaving nothing. Father's not wanting to, Father's wanting to make sure everything is complete. So, as David mentioned, Professor was really reassuring us, because when we heard these lectures in Schmitten, of course, Father hadn't yet passed, although he was very, very unwell. But he reassured us, Father has already completed all these things. So, even from the spiritual world, Father can come with Mother and have that Foundation Day. So, introduction. So the key words of the current providence, which is the providence to Foundation Day, are Foundation Day, and also to understand what Foundation Day means. What is Foundation Day? Foundation Day is God's wedding. It's God's wedding and God's first love, where God, as the vertical owner of the sexual organs, experiences 120 degrees. Right? That's what it is. So, what's Father's word about that day? Foundation Day and the true parents world apart. Let's live together. Let's live together. Where do we live together? We live together in attendance to the heavenly family, in attendance to the true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind. And where is that place? That is the Garden of Eden. What does it mean, the Garden of Eden? It means the place before any trace of the fall. It means the world before the commandment. Do you understand? Not just the world before the fall. No. This was, I never heard this, never understood this at all before. But he explained, the Father he started to explain, never explained it like that, quite like that before. It's not just the fall. There was something that occurred which required God to give the commandment. And then already, they were not really completely in the Garden of Eden before he had to give the commandment. But because before he had to give the commandment, they only had the divine mind. It means what? They can only hear the voice of God. Because their mind is the divine mind. But after the commandment, what does it mean? It means they're hearing 2 voices. That's why they need the commandment. Because they have to know not to follow the wrong voice. They have to try to discriminate between the 2 voices. So, where's that place we want to live together? It's the place we attend the Trinity. It's the place we attend the God of night and day. The God of night and day. Not the God of night and the God of day, but the God of night and day. The oneness. That's that place. And that is the original Garden of Eden, before any trace of the fall. So the creation ceremony of the heavenly nation and Foundation Day. That's in a sense what Foundation Day is. The creation ceremony of the heavenly nation. So the heavenly nation is created centering on the heavenly family. So no heavenly family, no heavenly nation. Right? No Trinity. Origin, division, union, action. Right? Trinity. But then origin, division, union, action becomes what? You complete origin, division, union, action, and then you move to the 4-position foundation. Means actually children. So you've got God, true parents, true children. What does that mean? It means you've got the heavenly family. The heavenly nation is created centered on the heavenly family. No heavenly family, no heavenly nation. Heavenly nation is the expansion of the heavenly family. Heavenly family is the heavenly couple up there, the heavenly parents and the heavenly children. The heavenly nation is the heavenly family and the blessed families. So what does that mean? Heavenly family and blessed families, these are Abel and Cain in relationship to one another. Heavenly family Abel, blessed family is Cain. What is the heavenly nation? It's the world of order centering on the heavenly family. So we've lived in disorder. Human history began with disorder. There's been no order because there's been no foundation day. There's been no origin. There's been no absolute sex. God has been a bachelor. God never married. God never took a wife. Nobody was born of God's blood lineage. Everybody was born of the devil, Satan's blood lineage. There was no nation. So to set up the nation, we need that place of absolute love. We need the foundation day. We need the heavenly family, which means that origin, division, union, action has become the full position foundation. Children have to be born. So, as it mentions in the original divine principle, from one being to all beings. So there's one origin. And from one origin, everything can expand from the one origin. And that's the definition in a sense. There is one origin. That the world that God intended starts from one origin. Invisible origin, God. Substantial origin, Adam and Eve. God of night and day. So this is a very significant moment. Do any of you recognize this moment? Do any of you recognize some of the people on there? Of course you recognize two parents. Of course you recognize our international president, but do you recognize the gentleman with the beard there? Professor Harbhajan Singh, right? Professor Harbhajan Singh, Bexley Interfaith Forum, and former deputy headmaster and Sikh League. That's him receiving the holy flame. And then the taller gentleman in the middle there, that's Abraham Haim. Abraham Haim is a very profound Jewish professor who lives half his time in Spain, and he was there as well, also receiving. So do you remember this occasion? This was on the second day of this heavenly calendar year. Right? So, first day of this heavenly calendar day, God's day took place. The next day is called what? What's the next day? Holy Day is Day of Victory of Love. Day of Victory and Love, they prepared in the Chonbok Gung a ceremony. And they were going to have it was an interfaith ceremony, right? They were going to have holy candles and holy salt. And it was all prepared, and everything was organised and so on. And then Father arrived, do you remember hearing about this? And he just remade it all. Forget everything you planned. I'm deciding everything now, and from my decision everything will happen. And, the sense was this was a very significant moment. And what did we receive from that day? We received the heavenly candle, right? I've got I just want to get, in my bag I've got the notes, I think. Oh yeah. Do you remember receiving the heavenly calendar? We read the inheritance of the heavenly calendar. Yeah. Right? So this was when that took place. So on the occasion of True Father's 93rd holy birthday, True Parents' golden wedding and jubilee year, and True Mother's 70th birthday, and in preparation for Foundation Day, on the 13th day of the first month in 2013, True Parents proclaimed, this is what Father named that ceremony. It was going to have a different name, but he gave it a new name. It was the conclusion ceremony and the commencement ceremony for the establishment of the heavenly kingdom. And what Professor Oh translated is, this was the time to hand over the heavenly nation creation holy candle. And the heavenly nation creation holy soul. So Father was already doing that on this event. That's why absolutely Father had to take it, because he and Mother, standing as the true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind, as God of night and day, they had to be the starting point, because this is the starting point of the new nation. While through this proclamation ceremony, bequeathing to all blessed families the holy candle for the establishment of the heavenly kingdom, true parents emphasized that all humanity should attend the heavenly family and live upholding one tradition, one lineage, and one life of resemblance of God. So one tradition, one lineage, one life of resemblance of God. According to true parents' word, this is to commence the ceremony to bequeath the holy candles for establishing the kingdom for all blessed families. Please make sure all blessed families, without exception, take part in this ceremony. From Father's words, from now, first, from true parents to true parents' children, everybody should return, centering on this place. The reason we're holding this rally is to observe this time to hold a conclusion ceremony and a commencement ceremony, a foundation ceremony for the establishment of the heavenly kingdom. Nobody else here can take responsibility for this ceremony but Father. There is one fire, not two. One light, not two. There is one candlelight as well. You must receive the flame. You must receive the flame, the grace, and the fire. All blessed families must unite as one, centering on this flame. In light of this tradition, true parents' blood must be connected to them. You should connect with this candlelight and live in attendance to the heavenly family. For innumerable generations, you must make sure that this candlelight is not extinguished. All the world should light this holy candle during Hundok time and hold a Songwa ceremony. Only then can it become the heavenly kingdom of liberation and complete freedom within the realm of Sabbath for 8 generations. As it says in my speech, that is why you must resemble that one tradition and that one lineage. You should set the candlelight and inherit this candle. The representatives of the religious denominations should, centering on this flame, place them in their churches, in their nations, and the world, so that the flame is not extinguished. Hundok should be held while the light of this candle is continuously burning. So this was amazingly, I wrote that, huge significance. He didn't have that on his slide. He said, you can't imagine the momentousness of the significance of this moment. So Father gave to Hyunjin, to the international president gave it to the religious leaders. Originally, the plan was the religious leaders would come with their candles and they would light their own candle from the candle. But no, Father, absolutely not. No. I give to Hyunjin, and Hyunjin gives to them. Because that's the setting up the correct order. So, in a sense, all of human history has been disordered. It all comes from the wrong order. It all comes from the Archangel's initiative. It all comes from Adam being the embodiment of Lucifer and having the sexual relationship with Eve. It all starts from the wrong place. So this is re-establishing the correct order. So correct order is very, very important. You can understand that. How important order is. No correct order, absolutely doesn't work. So what is the heavenly nation? Externally, the heavenly nation is the fourth Israel. Means more like political entity. Internally, the heavenly nation is China. Religious aspect. But of course, to make the nation, the religious and the political, as Sung Sang and Hyun Sang, mind and body should meet together, should come together. And Foundation Day should be the start of the substantial Children Book. So of course it will be the start of the substantial Children Book. But you can, and Fathers absolutely, set all the conditions for that to be. But of course you can imagine that it has to substantiate itself more substantially. Surely it's clear to us all that ideally, this should be the nation. And the religious and the political should become one in that nation. Right? So ideally we can imagine this should be the unified Korea. And it should be a nation, religious Chonil-guk and Fourth Israel like united together, ideally like that. There has to actually be that substantial expression. Actually, in the final lecture, which I won't give, well, I won't even get to the third one, I don't think, but in the fourth lecture, he talks about the free ideal world. And he explains, you know, in that world, the religious and the political have to be united together. They should be united together. But he talks about that also as something your father hesitated to talk about. Because, you know, you can't talk about those things until you have enough foundation. You can't talk about that until you have a position of, you know, a certain powerfulness, you know, to be able to say those things. Otherwise, basically, he wants to destroy you, because you're threatening the evil sovereignty. You know, so Father didn't talk so much in those sorts of terminologies, but ultimately, he explained it's a bit like, in that final lecture, he refers to, his father referred to the Vatican. So in the Vatican, the Pope is externally head of state, but internally, he's, you know, in this role as, you know, God's representative, internal religious role. So Foundation Day is the start of the substantial Chonil-guk, which is the unity, should be the unity of both aspects. Chonil-guk is the era of realm of victory of the independent country. So he emphasized this. It means that country is not under the influence of any of the countries that didn't start from there. So all the other nations, they have their foundation days, but they don't belong to God. So that nation has to be completely independent. And it's the age of unification of one il. One il means the one nation belonging to God. So the internal and the external nation, it's just notes I put on the bottom, should unite in an independent nation. Ideally should be the unified Korea, where the true parents of heaven, earth and humankind hold the authority. The foundation day is the origin on which all must be built. So the foundation day is that beginning point. But from that beginning point, of course, everything still has to be built into the heavenly nation. So the foundation day is the start of a nation, but what's that nation? It's the place where two become one. Two become substantially one. So we understood that, didn't we? It's the division stage of the origin, division, union action. True father and true mother. They are the substantial masculine and feminine representations, substantiations of God. And it will, of course, be marked by the third or perfection level holy wedding. So 1960, 2003, 2013 Foundation Day. This will be the holy wedding of the true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind. Which is also, of course, we understand, God's wedding. It's when mother will become wife of God. It's the wedding where God and human beings also become one. It's the wedding where the spiritual world and the physical world are connected into oneness. So you know Father's speech, he talks about the association of the spiritual world and the physical world. And also again he emphasized from Foundation Day our efforts will bear fruit more rapidly. So the Foundation Day is the start of the substantial heavenly family. It's the day when the heavenly couple is manifested. It's the day when the heavenly parents are manifested, true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind. And it's also a re-blessing day for everybody who's been born. Because until that point, until Foundation Day, no one's been born out of Foundation Day. So in other words, nobody was born. Even the true children. He was very, very clear. Everybody has to be reborn. So he explained the true children took the 10-14 cosmic blessing. Right? They received the Holy One. Everybody who's been born, true children, blessed children, we all have to be reborn on the Foundation Day through the blessing from the true parents and through the benediction prayer, through the grace of the true parents. Nobody has a proper base to exist. We all need to be reborn. How do we get reborn? We understand we can't be physically reborn. It's a artistic process. That's why it's very difficult to be reborn. Of course, through grace you can be reborn, right? It's done to you in a sense. But, you know, we understand if something's given to you, the more you understand what's being given to you, the more likely you are to be able to prepare for it and to be able to properly receive it. So this content, not just the content we can share with you this morning, but the content of all those lectures, so helpful to prepare for Foundation Day Tim Miller, you must study it every day. You must study it until you really understand it. Everybody, please, I've got to try and make myself really do that. Not because, we should, of course we have to study the 8 great textbooks and teaching materials. Of course we have to. But what I'm saying is this is the overview. It means he even gives in the middle lectures, he gives a complete overview of all the great textbooks and teaching materials. He explains the significance of each of them, what they're fundamentally addressing. It's very, very, very helpful to understand their preciousness. And then we will receive the re-blessing. So the heavenly family's direct children means the true children. They will then be manifested based on being re-blessed. And then also we will be receiving the re-blessing, and we will be reborn as direct children. We will also receive, and he explained, we will receive the heavenly stamp or the heavenly seal. Heavenly stamp or heavenly seal. And he says he doesn't know exactly how that will be manifested. But Father has a heavenly seal. There is a heavenly seal. And that will become the evidence. Through receiving the heavenly seal, I don't know how or where or what, it will be the mark, it will be the evidence that we are reborn. And such incredible grace. Because of course, no matter how much we do prepare, of course we can never be worthy of that. We didn't even understand anything of what needed to be done. How could we be worthy of it? So the incorporeal God is embodied and manifested in the true parents. The incorporeal God finds the substantial God. God of night finds the God of day, and they become the God of night and day. God and true parents are manifested as a perfected being who has achieved completion. Because the God of night, the invisible God, cannot be completed without the God of the day. It's the unification and oneness. So Father had a ceremony in Hawaii just such a short time ago. I suppose that was May time in our calendar. On the 3rd month of this year, the heavenly calendar year, the 26th day in Hawaii. So Father, so recently, Father had the 20th anniversary events for the Women's Federation, and he went with Mother to Hawaii. And then on that foundation, also we understood that, if I got it correctly from Professor Oh's content, after that 20th anniversary of the Women's Federation for World Peace, Father already held an event before he left Korea, which was sort of like the internal inauguration of the Able Women UN. So he came back, and the last big public event Father had on the 16th of July was the inauguration of the Able Women UN. But before he left for Hawaii, he already internally did that. And then when he got to Hawaii, he could declare this. He could declare this ceremony. God and true parents are manifested as a perfected being who has achieved completion, unification, and oneness. The day when the original creation's heavenly family starts. That is, ultimately the foundation day. Father was preparing all the last little absolute details to absolutely secure the preparation for the foundation. The day when the heavenly nation starts as the expansion of the heavenly family. What is the heavenly nation? It has only one origin. Its origin is, God, true parents, true children, heavenly family. 3 stages. And of course, also that, the foundation of faith is God's wedding and the coronation ceremony of the true parents of heaven. And that foundation day ceremony, because, true parents are standing there as the King of Kings, what does it mean? It means also substantially we are seeking to bring heads of state and government for foundation. Actually, of course, we're seeking to bring heads of state and government right now to Father Sunwa. So there's a big battle going on. Please have it in your prayers. There's a big battle going on. Who can come from the world to Father Sunwa? There's so much interest. For example, the current Prime Minister of Albania is almost agreed to come. And there's so much interest from Mother and our leadership in Korea, all there trying to make Father Sunwa as significant as possible, that a current head of government is potentially coming. Of course, there are others. I understand that Prime Minister or the President of Mali is coming, and maybe 1 or 2 others, but there's not very many of them. So it's very significant because, of course, this is the correct order. It's representative. It's a substantial manifestation of the world coming into order. That's why it was so significant. Do you remember when Daniel Philip, the Solomon Islands Prime Minister, came and bowed down with his cabinet in front of Father? It meant so much to Father because it's the substantial expression of this process. Foundation Day starts in the original creation's Garden of Eden. So what is Father seeking to establish through all these ceremonies, all these proclamations, all these processes that Father understood need to be made to enable Foundation Day to take place? Father's doing what the first and the second Adam couldn't do. Father's doing what no religious founder ever did, no path they never went. The way that there's never been gone. Nobody in the entire human history has gone that way. It can't even be understood through the providence of restoration. Why? Because Foundation Day is not to do with the providence of restoration. It is to do with the origin of the new beginning. It's the world after the completion of restoration. It's the way pioneered by the true parents who came as the third Adam. So it is the completion of restoration. The completion stage of the completion stage of restoration. The absolute completion. So in his Father's prayer. And this is this diagram about this, very interesting. And this whole lecture focused around this content, actually. It's very interesting. Professor O continuously referring back to this. So this is a diagram we're trying to explain. So of course, we can't be certain exactly that the commandment was given at the age of 14, but approximately at that age. So, from the age, Adam and Eve, from the age of 1 to 14, they only had what he called, in the earlier lectures, he used the expression recognition for others. But in the later lectures, he used awareness for others. So, it means prior to 14, they only heard the voice of God, and they only had a mind, a heart for God and others. They didn't have any mind or heart. They didn't have any tendency, they didn't have any inclination to consider things centering on themselves. Just didn't have it. Didn't exist. And they only were able to hear the sound of God, the voice of God. That's the way he described it. But from approximately the age of 14, God gave the commandment. And why did God give the commandment? He said, originally there's no need for a commandment because there's one woman and there's one man. So you don't need to command anything. If they want to establish their relationship as husband and wife, they just need to go to God and say, God, and as soon as they're, as soon as they probably, he didn't say this, presumably the explanation is once they feel that, God will say to them, yes, or God will say to them, just a few days, or God will say to them, whatever God would say, and then God would bless them, and then they would come and absolute sex would take place, first love would take place, and God's heavenly family and nation would begin. So there wasn't a need for a commandment. Where does the need for the commandment arise? Is because God can see the archangels not just hearing God's voice. He has a voice in himself which is to do with recognition for self, or awareness for myself, not for God and others, for myself. So he's got a type of thinking going on in there which is not for God and other people. It's for myself. And he explained what's that to do with? That's to do with feeling decrease of love. Because is there a decrease of love? Is there a decrease of love? No. There's no decrease. He's perceiving a decrease of love because he's thinking incorrectly. Do you understand? Oh, sorry. He's perceiving sorry, they need the microphone downstairs. He's perceiving a decrease of love because he's thinking centering on himself. There's no decrease of love. Did God plan the archangel will get less love? No part of the plan of God. He went on to explain also in these presentations, he explained this whole thing about after Foundation Day, what's a task of the true parents? Or what would have been Adam and Eve's task? There are only male angels, right? God made only male angels. After Adam and Eve are completed, Adam and Eve will create female angels. This is Father's explanation. And he went, if you listen to those tapes, you look at those slides, because all these things which we couldn't catch, he's explaining it all, right? He's explaining why God, the angels were there long before Adam and Eve, from the very beginning of creation. But they could not, they were created earlier, but they will not complete earlier. Do you understand? So the order of creation is not the same as the order of completion, right? Do you understand that point?
Yeah.
Order of creation, angels created first, then everything else, then finally Adam, then finally Eve, right? But the order of creation is not the same as the order of completion. So what would ensure, absolutely, angels cannot complete? They're only made angels. Right? Adam and Eve must complete as the God of day to the God of night, to make the God of night and day. And then the God of night and day, through Adam and Eve, will make the angels partners. So Father said these things recently. Did you hear this about the archangel being like an uncle, being like to Adam and Eve, being like a cousin, being like almost like a brother to God? He told all sorts of things which revealed to us that the archangel's position is not quite how we understood it before. Something different there. Anyhow, when God felt the archangel had recognition for myself, awareness for myself, then God gave the commandment to the archangel and to Adam and Eve. So they shouldn't. It was forbidden. They shouldn't have relationships. So then, from 14 to 16, there's another period, right? This is the period, and the fall, the implication here is the fall was approximately at the time of 16. But already from 14 to 16, they're not in the original Garden of Eden. So, in the process of restoration, so after the commandment was given, Eve did only have awareness for others. But from the archangel's awareness for self, she acquired also a capacity to hear the archangel's voice. So, before only heard God's voice, only heard God's sound. But after that moment, the commandment was necessary because actually there was a danger they could hear the archangel's sound, or the archangel's voice. So they were between God's voice and the archangel's voice. And of course, therefore, they had to be able to discriminate between the two. So God's guidance was very clear. Don't eat the fruit. But archangel's guidance was different, of course. You can eat the fruit. The fruit is the fulfillment of your being. You need to have sexual relationship. And ultimately, of course, to eat, you need to have sexual relationship with me. So in terms of the restorational process, do you see it says at the bottom there, completion of restoration 1, no original sin. Completion of restoration 2, no awareness for self. So Father's explaining to absolutely remove all trace of the fall, not only is it needed to have a condition to remove the original sin, we actually need to get back to the place before the commandment. We need to get back to the Garden of Eden before any trace of that type of mind. So we should return to the point where we only hear the voice of God and where we only have awareness for others, or recognition for others, not for self. So he made a very, very profound point of that, very important point of that. And this is connected to what Father's been doing even in these recent times, right up in these last couple of years, just in preparation for the foundation. So this chart then is explaining it again. So from age to 1 to 14, from their birth, Adam and Eve, and then 14 to 16 is the period of the commandment, and then after 16 is the period after the fall. So before 14, they only had one word from God, or one human responsibility. That was a positive direction from God. What they should do, they should fulfill the 3 great blessings. But after the time came this with the commandment, God spoke to them in terms of what they should not do. Different, do you understand? It's different. What they shouldn't do. And after the fall, what's our human responsibility? Human responsibility is we have to make the foundation to receive the Son before God can send the Son. So the sound, Up to 14, they only hear God's sound or God's voice. 14 to 16, they hear God's voice, but also they can hear the archangel's sound. And then after the fall, fundamentally, we cut off from God's voice. We just hear the archangel's sound. Even, I think the implication is, even the good words that came from God, from saints and sages and so on, these are good archangels. Understand? That's sort of awareness of original sin. Awareness and original sin, that's the next category going down. So before 14, only awareness for others. 14 to 16, awareness for others and awareness for self. And after the fall, after 16, original sin and awareness for self is the predominant type of mindset coming from Lucifer, coming from Satan. Realm of dominion, we're in the indirect dominion in both those two earlier periods, but after the fall, of course, we're under Satan's dominion. So earlier there's one tradition and lineage, then there's two traditions emerging. Do you understand? There's a struggle for possession of Adam and Eve and to set the lineage and the tradition. There's a struggle going on in a sense because Lucifer already has this mind. And then after, then the archangel's tradition is established. The archangel's tradition, lineage and resemblance, which has to, of course, be recovered to God's one tradition, one lineage, and one resemblance. Like we read about the candle, right? Exactly the words from the candle. One tradition, one lineage, one resemblance of God. So we have to go back, to recover it all. So the point is we have to get back, not just to past the original sin, but we have to get back to as it were, before 14, to the time of one tradition, one lineage, and one resemblance. So that's this restorational process. So, again, relating to the same time periods in Adam and Eve's growth and development. So, the original providence is the ideal of creation, and then already we're into some sort of restorational content between 14 and 16, because God's given what they cannot do, is He's trying to recover something which is already heading in the wrong direction. And then, of course, after the fall, providence and salvation. So then that's the period. Sorry. No, I think this is a restorational diagram, so it's going in the opposite direction. It's all going in the opposite direction, right? Yeah. Do you see? So, it's the stages. So we're trying to get back to before 14. We're trying to... Oh, sorry, yeah. We're trying to return to the ideal of creation, do you understand? So you read the diagram from right to left, in a sense. So we're going from cleansing original sin to cleansing awareness for self. So we only have awareness for others. We're going from funeral to Sunghwa ceremony to Songhwa ceremony, right? We're going from salvation to restoration, and then finally use this word that Father's starting to use now. I forget the Korean, it's over the page, I think it's the next page. Father used this word of returning. Coming back to the point before the commandment is not restoration, it's returning. Returning to the Garden of Eden, the place before any trace of fall. So returning to Foundation Day culture, which is the position of awareness for others, one tradition, one blood lineage, one resemblance. So Foundation Day is from the place of the completion of restoration. So Foundation Day marks the completion of restoration. So it's the place where we returned, and that word, do you see the Chinese character there after return? That's hui gui. Means returning and attaching to the rear. It means we get back to the place before the commandment was necessary, where there's no awareness for self. And there we attach ourselves to the true parents from the heavenly family. We absolutely stick with them, stay with them, follow them, because nobody else can lead into the new world. The new world starts with true parents of heaven and mankind, God of night and day, and the heavenly family. And it mentions there about the Songhwa ceremony of David as kindling the first one. So then this is talking about proclamation of the final completion of the true parents. And Father made proclamations about the ultimate unity of the true parents. And this, you know, your Father refers to this in his speech, in his Cosmic Assembly speech, 3:25 a.m. in Las Vegas. Do you remember this is the second occasion Father refers to in his speech? 2010, 15th day of the 5th month in the heavenly calendar, 3:25 a.m. Father made this proclamation of ultimate unity between Father and Mother. Very, very important. So this is Mother reaching the point. Do you understand? Father, do you remember, Father's progression is dependent on Mother's progression, because Mother has to come with him. So this marked the point of absolute total oneness between Father and Mother, and then absolute total oneness between true parents and God. And Mother entering this stage where she has, you know, independent substance as the feminine expression of God. And that was the final completion of the Las Vegas Providence. And anyhow, I'm going to go a little bit quicker now, if I may. Also connected to the fact that Father could declare Korea as God's homeland, which of course he does it in the Cosmic Assembly speech, right? So, 2000, Father then, on the basis of that, you know, could declare Korea as God's homeland and have the World Assemblies starting in July of 2010. So this is another proclamation of life in the age after the coming of heaven. And this connects with Father and Mother's 52nd anniversary of their holy wedding in last year on the 16th day of the 3rd month in the heavenly calendar, which was their 52nd wedding anniversary. And it's also the proclamation, connects also going further back to, do you remember when Father was in Yesu, 5-5, Father was using his 2 sets of 5 fingers to explain about the era before the coming of heaven, the era after the coming of heaven. The Father spent the same number of days in Yesu as the years of his life to make a new beginning. Do you remember that timing? And the life in the age after the coming of heaven begins to happen, begins to unfold. Father said that on the 52nd wedding anniversary. And then, of course, Father came to Europe to do his speaking tour. Did 8 nations in Europe, including Istanbul. Went back to Las Vegas, and then after Las Vegas went to Nigeria. When in Nigeria, when he was in direct meeting with Goodluck Jonathan, the president, he talked to him about one tradition, one blood lineage, one resemblance, that core content. That was on the 15th day of the 7th month by the heavenly calendar. And then again, another proclamation, completion of the providential ultimate purpose. That was achieved, and Father talked about it at that time in 2011, 3rd day of the 7th month. Completion, perfection, and completed perfection. In other words, completeness of the first, second, and third heaven. And Father was declaring this absolute completion of the province of restoration, because the absolute completion of the province of restoration is the point that is marked ultimately by the foundation of it. So also completion of the era from blockade. So then this is also connecting with the new song choir ceremony. And then Father declared, this is very interesting, isn't it, compared to seeing what we've just been studying. So this is the 14th day of the 10th month. This is the anniversary of Father's liberation from Hongnam last year. Father said in his speech on that day, we entered the month before the commandment. So what we studied before, right? We need to get back before the commandment. So we're going back. And Father explained, we entered the month before the commandment. Father's desperately trying to get back to that place to prepare for foundation. That place is entered before entering the perfection of the perfection of the Creator. The completion of restoration is the place before the commandment, before do not eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And then do you remember, for True Parents' birthday time, they gave these awards. Again, they gave 1,200 awards. Some of us received those awards. But at the same time, Father suddenly added to those who could receive the award another category. Do you remember what that category was? There were certain, ways we could measure our achievement to get the award, but then Father suddenly added another category which didn't have to achieve any of those things. They just had to be pregnant. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Father added that category. And that connects to the fact that already, through getting back to the month before the commandment, it means they belong, the children conceived from that day, 2011, 10, 14, which is 471 days before Foundation Day, they already are conceived in the Garden of Eden. In other words, their birth is already a sumwasan. They don't belong to the fruit. Don't belong. So Father, in a sense, advanced the grace of Foundation Day so that those who are pregnant could receive that award. And then through the re-blessing on Foundation Day and through receiving the heavenly seal, we also will then be registered as citizens of the heavenly nation, which will begin on that day. So this is then the proclamation of the final lesson and order which Father made on the 7th day of the 11th month last year, which converts the lineage. It's a process Father's preparing for Foundation Day, so Foundation Day can be absolute conversion of lineage. If you listen to the soundtrack, you'll get more than I'm telling you here, because I'm not feeling I'm telling you enough. Also, of course, Professor Oh couldn't share everything. Sometimes he had to reduce what he explained. So then also there's another proclamation of the memorial of the greatest victory of Chernobyl. Memorial, the eternal victory has been perfected enough to be memorialized. Completion and perfection of Chernobyl has been finished, Arju. Completion of the union of true God and true parents. God has been completed, perfected, and completely perfected, Arju. Father said these things. He said these things on that day. Heaven has been completed through attendance. And then again, another proclamation. And this connects to perfected unification, oneness, and perfection of the realm of oneness of the true parents. And this is connected to the proclamation of the foundation of the Women UN. And this is the earlier proclamation that Father made before they went to Hawaii. And then in Hawaii, as you remember, Father declared Adam and Eve achieved perfected unification, oneness, and perfection. So Father had that ceremony then in Hawaii with Mother. And also, very, very, very important, and Professor Oh emphasized this, very, very important is the part that Hyungjinim and Kukjinim are playing in this. Because there also needed to be a condition of unification of the Cain world and the Abel world. So actually their unity, Hyungjinim and Kukjinim's unity, is a crucial, vital condition also for this unity between Cain and Abel. And then also talking and connecting it as well, and in the final lecture he talks more about this, connecting to the, as it were, the restoration of the UN. Because Father originally, of course, post Second World War, when Father had this understanding within 7 years, maybe it would have taken 7 years to reach Foundation Day. Maybe 52 should have been Foundation Day. That period would have been very connected to Father's connection to the United Nations and influence on the world through the United Nations. As Father explains in the Able Women UN speech, that United Nations could never stand because it was compromised through the compromise in the Cold War situation between the democratic nations and the communist nations. So the UN could never escape the realm of Cain because it was compromised. Didn't unite with Father, but was compromised because of the Cold War situation. So it could never stand. It needs to be restored, recovered. And that was Father and Mother in Hawaii with that one of those proclamations there. The perfection of the realm of oneness on the 3rd day of the 3rd month. This year. So then, proclamation of the ultimate completion, perfection of the cosmic assembly. So again, he explains about that. And, in the content in these in these lectures, and if you listen to the audio, you can understand all this content. And, these are actually from Father's words. Father said on the 22nd day of the 3rd month, he said, Sam Myung Moon, this is at point 3, and Hak Ja Han, who are the true parents, return to the place of completion and restoration. And he said this makes everything pure and offers everything to God. And God has recovered the authority of Creator. So then true parents stand as the absolute Lord. And that's that proclamation there in Las Vegas. So Father's been building up all these conditions through his profound understanding of what was lost and what needs to be recovered, to absolutely complete everything. So Father could say in these last couple of years, repeatedly talk about everything's completed, finalizing everything, the preparation and foundation. Very important point here. Foundation Day and mission of the blessed families. So at Foundation Day, what will happen? We will be reborn in the place of completion and restoration. In the place where there should only be awareness for others. So our preparation for that, internally of course, is to purify ourselves and try to remove from ourselves all traces of the fall. Try to remove from ourselves awareness for self, this type of wrong mind. Cleanse the recognition for self and eliminate the cause in that sense. How do we do that? In terms of the spiritual world, we're doing that through the 210 generations ancestor liberation and blessing. In terms of the physical world, of course, it's not just our responsibility for ourselves, because of course it's awareness for others, isn't it? So it means we are in this position, as Father expressed in his speech, do not forget you have responsibility to liberate the family, the tribe, the nation, the world. So our awareness should reach out to our tribal messiahship responsibility. We're not going to attend that event for myself. We want to actually demonstrate our intention to give that. We who are unworthy, we who don't have a right to receive it, but are receiving it by grace, we want to share that grace with others. So we want to fulfill our tribal messiahship. In that place, then, we will only listen to the sound of God's voice. So the tribal messiahship mission, preparing people to receive the blessing on the Foundation Day time, distribution of the autobiography, studying the original divine principle and sharing the original divine principle, and keeping the practice of Undoke. So you'll notice in all the directions from Father and also from International President, they've been repeatedly asking us to do, in Hyunjin's direction, International President direction, read at least 30 minutes Undoke every day. This we're being asked to do. We're being asked to do until Foundation Day, right? And now we're being asked to do until 25th of October, which is 53 days after Father's passing, during that period as well. Trying to help us. Minimum standard, witness to 12 and bless 3. This also is connected to the tribal messiahship mission. So it's our way. Of course, internally purification, spiritual world, ancestor liberation and blessing, physical world, tribal messiahship mission. Okay, so I'll finish probably with these next few slides now, because there's a lot more. So this is diagrammatically explaining then God as the first generation, true parents as the second generation, and true children as the third generation. This is the heavenly family, right? 3-stage completion of the heavenly family means origin, division, union, action becomes the 4-position foundation. This is the minimum unit, the starting point, the heavenly family out of which the heavenly nation comes. So what about the blessed families? So then in terms of the blessed families and their connection to the true parents, first generation is true parents, second generation is the blessed couple, third generation is their children in that sense. So key word of the Foundation Day is let's live together. So we're coming to the conclusion. Let's live together in the place before the commandment. So in the place where there's no trace of the fall. Let's live together in the place where there's only awareness for others. Let's live together in the place where we only hear God's sound, where we only hear God's voice, we don't hear the archangel's voice. Let's live together centered on one tradition, one blood lineage, one resemblance, which means, the heavenly order, starting from God of night and day, true parents of heaven and humankind, and the heavenly family, centered on that heavenly family. We establish then the heavenly nation. So, Chonol Guk, the place where God resides. Let's live together attending the true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind. So the heavenly nation is created centering on the heavenly family. He's emphasized that point over and over and over again, the point of order. And he emphasized a lot more than I've done, the very profound significance of father and mother, absolute total oneness, but then also the very great importance of Cain and Abel unity, represented by the achievement of the true children through Kyungjin and Kuchin. So the heavenly family is the heavenly couple, heavenly parent, and heavenly children. The heavenly nation is the heavenly family of the blessed families, who are both Cain and Abel families. The heavenly nation is the world of order, true order, centered, connected to God through the place of absolute sex. That's the heavenly world. So from that one origin, all beings come into existence. Or in a sense, we are all reborn, or the new world, the Chonol Guk, begins. In that world, as Father said on that day on the Day of Victory of Love this year, he had that ceremony, there's only one religion. Only one religion. Centering on the true parents of heaven and humankind. So Father took command of that moment as the starting point, as the creation point of the heavenly nation. So that's only 2 of 4 lectures. So I'll just say a prayer and we will conclude. Dearest Heavenly Father, there's so much we don't really understand. And, of course, even we start to grasp it in our minds, we start to understand a little bit intellectually. And with the help of Professor Oh, we can put together all these words that Father's been sharing, but to get it from our intellectual mind into our deepest heart, we want to really try to do that before Foundation Day. In fact, we want to be doing that already, because in a few days' time we need to really pay our respects, as we are during this Sungwa period, with the universal Sungwa ceremony for our true Father. And obviously, in tribute to him and his extraordinary life, all this amazing work that nobody knew needed to be done, but the Father understood, because he really captured the centrality, the core of all the truths, which is absolute sex. Father understood what needed to be recovered. And a step-by-step, proclamation by proclamation, been fighting to recover that, to not leave this world before he'd already established everything, so we could receive such enormous grace on Foundation Day, to be reborn through the benediction prayer, and to be able to be citizens of Chonol Guk, to be able to be the direct descendants of the true parents of heaven, earth, and humankind, in a ceremony officiated by the God of night and day. Father, we can say the words, but we don't really in our hearts know what this incredible gift, what this lifelong, passionate, absolute devotion, this absolute faith in the principle that Father had, resembling the absolute faith that you, God, had in your principle, even when it all went wrong. And the absolute love that Father had to invest and forget, and invest and forget, be betrayed and misused and accused and mistreated, but to keep giving and giving and giving. This is absolute love. And then absolute obedience from Father's point of view is to make that Foundation Day, to substantiate what you've been waiting for, to end your bachelor time and to let you have your marriage, your wedding day, your registration of marriage, Heavenly Father, which precedes our rebirth, and then the registration of our own marriages under the authority of the heavenly nation, under the authority of Chonol Guk. Thank you, Heavenly Father. Please help us to put these things deep in our hearts and find the courage and the energy to internally and externally prepare ourselves for Foundation Day. And also for this moment where we bid farewell to our true Father with all the love and respect that connects our heart to his heart, because in the end, being reborn is a matter of heart, and we cannot be reborn again in our bodies. Thank you so much, Heavenly Father, and please let the grace of this content flow to all of our brothers and sisters, and beyond them to our tribes and to our nations and our world. Thank you so much. Offer this prayer on behalf of everybody here in deepest gratitude. My name is Tim Miller. Bless Central very much.
Thank you very much, Tim. I think you all understand Tim's responsibility. He has so many things to do. So for him to be able to take the time to prepare these presentations and come here and pour out his heart, I think is really a very big grace and blessing. So let's really appreciate Tim.